On this episode of China Uncensored, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, step right up to witness the showdown of the century. Place your bets now. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. It was the showdown we were all waiting for. The world's two biggest economies contending for the title of world superpower. Last week, the leader of the unfree world and head of the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping, met with the leader of the free world and head of the Mar-a-Lago Palm Beach Preservation Society, Donald Trump. The whole world tuned in to watch the two-day fight at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate here in Palm Beach, Florida. Donald Trump expected it to be very difficult. A high-stakes gamble for both sides. No patty cake playing here. It was head-to-head, mano a mano. Dare I say, a real face-off? But the most important question for this epic showdown is, who won? So today on China Uncensored, we'll be giving you a blow-by-blow rundown of the match. And the two contenders are out. Trump arrives at West Palm Beach Airport with a crowd cheering his name. Definitely a point for Trump. Xi arrives at the same airport. Sorry, Xi, not as flashy. But wait, he's a gentleman, taking his wife's hand as they walk down the jetway. Point for Xi Jinping. Okay, so they're tied, but I'm sure that will change. Let's move on to the most hotly anticipated part of the summit, the all-important handshake. Trump is famous for his patented yank and pull style of handshake, and the occasional no handshake. How will Xi Jinping handle it? Shoot, let's see if there's another angle. Trump goes in for the yank and pull, but like a Tai Chi master, Xi effortlessly steps in to absorb the handshake, meeting it with a firm handshake of his own. He had extensive training from China's National Department of Handshake Defense Techniques. So that's a point for Xi Jinping. Next, the family meeting. Ivanka Trump brings out her 5-year-old daughter Arabella to woo Xi Jinping and his wife with a traditional Chinese song. Trump gets a point for having an adorable granddaughter. Oh, and Arabella didn't sing just any song. Apparently, that song was a favorite of former Chinese leader and Xi's staunch political enemy, Jiang Zemin. Trump gets another point for having a political mastermind for a granddaughter. What did the Chinese side offer as a comeback? Showing off the power of Chinese collectivism, busloads of Chinese nationalists came to welcome Xi Jinping outside his hotel. Or maybe they just got lost on their way to a Star Trek convention. But wait, what is that terrible music they're blasting? It sounds like the theme song for Battle on Shangangling Mountain, a propaganda film idolizing China's fight against American troops during the Korean War. The song slanders U.S. troops as wolves and goes on to say, if the ravenous wolves come, those greeting them have hunting guns. Bad form. But that's still a point for Xi for largest volume of supporters. But then I also have to give Trump a point for his supporters, who make up for their lack in numbers with a whole lot of enthusiasm. Showing off the power of American individualism, this guy. The driver is winning so much, he's probably sick of winning. And it's a pretty close match so far between Trump and Xi. So, what did they talk about on the first day?
So far, I have gotten nothing, absolutely nothing. But we have developed a friendship, I can see that.
Friendship? Friendship with China doesn't have much political value for Trump. He's already got friends, loads of friends, the best friends. But for Xi Jinping, friendship with America is a huge propaganda coup. So a point for Xi, and it's looking like a tie. Shoot, that can't be right. This was the epic showdown between the world's two biggest economies. Superpower meets superpower. There's got to be a winner. Hold on, Trump still has a trump card to play. Syria. While enjoying a fancy dinner of Dover sole and New York steak, and definitely not the McDonald's he threatened 2 years ago, Trump launches a missile strike against Syria, punishing Assad for his chemical attack on civilians. Boom! Trump shows Xi that he is a man of action. And it backs up the threats he made earlier last week that if China is not going to solve North Korea, we will. Plus, it knocks the wind out of the claims that Trump is a Russian stooge. 3 points for Trump. Okay, now this is getting interesting. Moving on to Friday, when Trump and Xi sat down to have that candid, frank conversation they were both looking forward to so much. First, what didn't they talk about? Apparently, no mention of Taiwan or the One China policy. Point for Xi. What about the South China Sea? Well, according to Secretary of State Tillerson, Trump brought it up, but didn't really say anything that Xi Jinping can't just ignore. So actually, that's a point for Xi. What about human rights? Something that Trump was urged to bring up during the meeting. Tillerson said that Trump also noted the importance of protecting human rights and other values deeply held by Americans. Well, that's good. But when a reporter asked Tillerson whether the Trump administration would pressure China on specific human rights violations, here's what he said.
As to the discussions around human rights in China, I think America's values are quite clear, and they really occupy the core of all of our discussions. I don't think you have to have a separate conversation. They're really embedded in every discussion.
So human rights are part of being Americans, so we don't have to separately talk about human rights because we're American. I'm going to interpret that as a no. We did not talk to China about their human rights violations. I'm disappointed in you, T-Rex. Another point for Xi. And the two are tied again. Now comes the contentious North Korea issue. 90% of the rogue regime's trade is done with China. But getting the Chinese Communist Party to turn on its little brother has been difficult. But at Mar-a-Lago, Xi Jinping agreed that action had to be taken against North Korea. Probably launching that missile strike on Syria helped Trump get his point across too. Now it looks like China is taking some action. They just sent back North Korean coal ships as part of UN sanctions. And they're also talking again to South Korea about hitting North Korea with more sanctions. That is a solid point for Trump. But it's also a win for Xi Jinping, because giving the appearance of being tough on North Korea prevents the US from acting on its own, which would have put China in an awkward spot. Plus, Xi Jinping already wanted to contain North Korea, so this is a good excuse for him. I'd say it's more of a win than a concession, so Xi deserves a point for that too. Now how about trade? Surely someone will break this tie. China has enjoyed a huge trade surplus with the US for more than 2 decades. Last year, it stood at $347 billion. And all those exports have been propping up China's economy. So Trump comes into the ring with harsh rhetoric about these trade imbalances. At the meeting, according to Financial Times, Xi Jinping offered the Trump administration better market access for financial sector investments. Xi Jinping also agreed to lift China's 13-year-long ban on U.S. beef and buy more American grain and agricultural products. And to further sweeten the pot, Xi and Trump agreed to a 100-day plan for trade talks to discuss how to handle China's trade surplus. So that's a point for President Trump, because he got the Chinese to make big trade concessions. But it's also a win for Xi Jinping. In a masterful move that can only further demonstrate Xi Jinping's knowledge of Tai Chi, he absorbs the blow and redirects it to his advantage. See, by making these concessions, Xi Jinping avoids the trade war Trump has been threatening. And the kicker is, he does it for practically nothing. All these concessions to Trump are actually things the Chinese government was already working on with the Obama administration. So, another point for Xi, and we're tied again. Really? No, this cannot end in a tie. There has to be something else we can look at. What about their outfits? Or their wives' outfits? Who won best dress? Who won best tie? Or the walk they took after lunch? Who won the walk? What's that, Shelley? What do you mean the scoreboard only goes up to 9? We need to know who won the summit. Fine. There's only one way to settle this. rematch. Trump accepted Xi's invitation to visit China later this year. There, he will enter the dragon's court and once and for all determine who is the world's sole superpower. So stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to China Uncensored. You can also watch us on Amazon Fire TV, Roku, or Apple TV. Well, unless you're in Taiwan or Hong Kong, Apple has decided we're illegal in both of those places and removed the China Uncensored app there. If you think that's points off for Apple, take a moment to click the link below to sign a petition demanding Apple allow viewers in Taiwan and Hong Kong to watch China Uncensored on Apple TV. Thanks for your support. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Chappell. See you next time.